Okay, let's get started. Are you feeling like you're just running flat out, putting in all this effort, trying every single hack you read about,
hmm
but you still feel like, I don't know, maybe you're just one AI update away from feeling irrelevant?
Yeah, that's a really common feeling right now, that sense of being overwhelmed, maybe even a bit uh, outpaced by technology. It's definitely in the air.
Absolutely. But here's a thought. What if the real issue isn't how hard you're working, but maybe how you're thinking? And I don't mean those, surface level mindset tricks.
Right.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into the core ideas from Critical Thinking by Richard Paul and Linda Elder. But this isn't a book report. Think of it more like a practical guide to rewiring your brain for real success in 2025.
Exactly. This isn't just about thinking positive thoughts. It's about developing a genuine strategic advantage in a world that really demands clear thinking and, frankly, smarter decisions than ever before.
You got it. So by the end of our conversation here, you'll walk away with 3 concrete things you can actually do. First, how to build, like laser focus, amid all the digital noise and AI chaos.
Which is huge.
Second, how to really tackle that inner critic, the fear of judgment that holds so many people back. And third, how to start installing success-oriented thinking patterns so they become almost automatic, your new default. Sound good? Ready to jump in?
Let's do it. So that first piece is really fundamental, this idea of the unreflective mind. Paul and Elder have this core concept. All thinking is driven by purpose and seeks to answer a question.
Right.
And it sounds simple, but honestly, how often do we just skip right past that?
Oh, constantly. We jump straight to the how, the tactics, the tools, the latest shiny object, and we totally forget the why behind it all. And Paul and Elder also mentioned the unreflective thinker, right? Someone who's basically unaware of the problems in their own thinking process. Why is that such a big deal now in 2025, especially with AI becoming so powerful?
Well, think about it. AI is incredible at generating answers and solutions. But if you feed it a vague purpose or a poorly thought out question,
Garbage in, garbage out, basically.
pretty much, you get sophisticated sounding noise. The unreflective thinker, who isn't even aware their purpose is fuzzy or their question is flawed, they risk using AI to become super efficient at doing things that don't actually matter. Or worse, amplifying their own biases, especially in things like the creator economy or starting a business. Your unique angle, your purpose, your critical questions, that's what AI can't replicate. That's your edge. Otherwise, you just burn out chasing trends without that solid foundation.
It's like having the world's best shipbuilder, the AI, but you haven't decided where you're sailing. You'll just end up drifting. So, okay, how do we fix that? What's the tool here?
Paul and Elder's framework gives us something we can adapt into. Let's call it a daily brain prime. Think of it like a quick mental checklist before you dive into something important.
Daily brain prime. I like that. So what does it involve?
Okay, so before you start a big task, writing something, planning strategy, even tackling your email, just pause. First, write down your primary purpose and really push beyond the obvious, like make money. What's the deeper impact? Who are you actually trying to help here?
Okay, get specific about the why.
Exactly. Then nail down the key question. What's the single most important question you need to answer to achieve that purpose? And finally, this is the tricky part. Try to identify any hidden assumptions or egocentric biases. Are you doing this because it truly serves the purpose? Or is there some FOMO, some desire to look good creeping in?
Wow, okay. That forces you to be really honest with yourself, getting those hidden drivers out in the open. And you mentioned something about rewriting our internal script, too.
Yeah, it's about shifting your self-perception. So instead of the default, I have to keep up with everything, maybe reframe it internally as, I am a strategic architect of my focus.
Ooh, I like that.
I consciously direct my mental energy towards solving specific, high-value problems that align with my core purpose. It feels different,
Yeah.
right? Puts you in the driver's
It feels
seat.
way more intentional, less reactive. Can you give us an example? Make it concrete.
Sure. Think about, say, Sarah Blakely with Spanx. Her purpose wasn't just sell shapewear. It was deeper. It was about making women feel more confident and comfortable.
Right.
So her key question became something like, how can I create something that does this without being uncomfortable or visible like the old stuff? That clarity drove everything. Now, fast forward to 2025, imagine a solopreneur. Maybe they want to help people use AI ethically. Their purpose isn't just teach AI skills, it's empower individuals to use AI effectively and ethically to improve their lives.
Okay.
So their key question might be, what's a clearest, simplest framework I can offer so people feel confident using AI daily without being overwhelmed or losing control? See the difference? It's targeted.
Yeah, that really clarifies it. Okay, quick pause for everyone listening. Just take a second right now. Think about your biggest goal or project. What is the real primary purpose underneath it all? And what's the key question you're really trying to answer? Just mull that over.
And that self-reflection actually leads us nicely into the second big challenge Paul and Elder highlight, our own ego.
The ego always gets in the way, doesn't it?
It certainly can. They point out, and this is key, that egocentric thinking results from the unfortunate fact that humans do not naturally consider the rights and needs of others. It's not about being a bad person, it's just, well, it's kind of our default brain wiring.
Our factory settings are a bit self-centered. Got it. So in this fast-changing 2025 world, how does that ego become a major problem?
Well, think about what the ego loves.
Yeah.
It loves comfort. It craves validation. It hates looking foolish or being wrong.
Yeah.
In a world demanding constant learning, adaptation, and really listening to others' customers, the market, even critics, that ego becomes a massive drag. It can make you ignore negative feedback, resist pivoting even when data screams you should, maybe because AI offers a better way, or just completely misunderstand what your audience actually needs.
You end up creating things in a vacuum, essentially for yourself.
Exactly. Building for an audience of one. We've all seen businesses do this, right? Get trapped by their own initial success or idea.
Totally. So how do we, get a handle on this? How do we perform a bit of ego control?
It comes back to that consistent, honest self-reflection. We can build on the daily prime idea and maybe call this a weekly ego audit.
An ego audit. Okay, sounds slightly painful, but necessary. How does it work?
Once a week, maybe Friday afternoon, pick a recent decision or maybe a strong opinion you defended. First, articulate the logical, rational reason you told yourself and maybe others for it.
Okay, the official story.
Right. Then dig deeper. Be brutally honest. What underlying egocentric motives might have been pulling the strings? Was it really about the best path forward? Or was it about needing to be right, avoiding an uncomfortable conversation, looking smarter than someone else, protecting your status, or just, wanting your own way?
Oof. Asking tough questions.
And then the final step. Try to imagine a totally objective, wise observer who has no stake in this. What would they advise, looking purely at the facts and the desired outcome without any of your ego involved?
That creates some distance, some perspective. It's like getting advice from an unbiased third party, but you're generating it yourself. And like before, is there an identity shift involved here too?
Definitely. You want to consciously shift your internal script. Move away from being the defender of my precious ideas towards becoming a dedicated seeker of truth. Someone who's actually courageous enough to confront their own biases, their own ego, to find what truly works, even if it means saying, you know what, I was wrong about that.
That takes guts. But you can see how crucial it is. We mentioned Blockbuster earlier. Their ego, their attachment to the old model, blinded them to the streaming revolution.
The classic example.
And today, you could easily see an entrepreneur so in love with their original AI app idea that they just ignore user feedback, saying it's confusing or not solving the real problem. The ego insists, no, my idea is brilliant.
Exactly. And that refusal to let go, fueled by ego, just shuts down learning and adaptation. It's a recipe for becoming obsolete fast.
Okay, listener, another quick pause for honesty. Think back on a recent decision or maybe a strong stance you took. Can you spot where your ego might have been subtly influencing things? Just be aware of it.
Awareness is the first step.
Eh.
Okay, so our third key takeaway focuses on the quality of our thinking inputs and processing. Paul and Elder emphasize applying what they call intellectual standards.
Intellectual standards? Like what?
Things like clarity, accuracy, relevance, significance, depth, breadth, logic, and fairness. The core idea is simple. Quality of your output, your decisions, your work, your creations depends directly on the quality of your mental processing. Garbage in, garbage out, as you said earlier, applies here too.
And man, in 2025, the garbage potential is huge, right? AI generating mountains of text, endless social feeds, a million online courses. It's an information tsunami.
Precisely. And without these intellectual standards acting as filters, you drown. Specifically, standards like relevance and significance are your life rafts. Without them, you waste your most valuable asset, your attention, on stuff that seems interesting but is ultimately trivial or distracting.
Yeah, clicking down rabbit holes that lead nowhere near your actual goals.
Or worse, you base important decisions on information that's just shallow, maybe inaccurate, or heavily biased, perhaps even generated by an AI with skewed data.
Okay, so it's not about trying to drink from the fire hose, but about having a really good filter. How do we actually use these standards day to day?
You can integrate them into a quick check, maybe call it the intellectual standards check, before you consume information or make a decision based on it.
All right, lay it on us.
First, clarity. Is this message or problem actually clear? Do I understand precisely what's being said or asked? If not, stop. Second, relevance. How directly does this relate to my most important goals right now? Is it critical or just noise? Be honest. Third, significance. Okay, assuming it's relevant, what are the 2 or 3 most important factors or pieces of information here? Am I focusing on the big levers or getting lost in tiny details?
Avoiding the trivial many for the vital few.
Exactly. And finally, consider depth and breadth. Is this information exploring the complexities? Does it consider different viewpoints? Or is it just a superficial take that ignores nuances?
That's a powerful filter set, and I'm guessing there's an identity shift here too.
You guessed it. Move from thinking of yourself as someone who needs to consume everything to stay informed to identifying as a strategic evaluator of information.
Strategic evaluator, I like that.
Someone who rigorously applies these standards to consciously prioritize information that is clear, relevant, and significant for achieving high-impact results. It's about quality over quantity.
Puts you back in control of the info flow rather than being overwhelmed by it. Any examples of this in action?
Well, think about someone like Alex Hormozi, who talks relentlessly about focusing only on the high-leverage activities that actually drive business growth. That's applying significance and relevance constantly.
Right, cutting out the fluff.
Or for that 2025 entrepreneur we imagine, facing tons of marketing options. They use the standards. Okay, for my specific goal this quarter and my limited budget. Clarity, relevance. Which 1 or 2 tactics have the highest potential impact significance based on solid reasoning, logic, depth, not just hype?
That cuts through so much noise and potential wasted effort. Okay, listener, final quick check-in. That last article you read or video you watched related to your goals, honestly, how relevant and significant was it? Did it pass the filter?
Which brings us to our 4th and final core idea for today, which ties everything together. Cultivating intellectual autonomy and fair-mindedness.
Okay, break those down for us. Intellectual autonomy.
Paul and Elder define it as having rational, independent control over your own beliefs and values. It's the willingness to think for yourself, even if it means standing apart from the crowd.
Not just following the herd. And fair-mindedness.
That's the disposition to treat all viewpoints genuinely and sympathetically, trying to understand them on their own terms without letting your own feelings or selfish interests distort your assessment. Basically trying to see things fairly, even perspectives you disagree with.
Okay, so thinking for yourself, but also thinking fairly about others' views. Why is this combo so vital right now?
Well, think about the creator economy, the rise of niche communities, the disruption from AI. These trends reward unique perspectives and punish conformity. Just echoing the mainstream or your particular bubble, what Paul and Elder call sociocentric thinking, isn't valuable anymore. You need the intellectual courage to forge your own path, autonomy, and the empathy to understand different viewpoints and needs, fair-mindedness, to truly connect and innovate.
So it's about having a unique voice, but one that's also informed and considerate. How do we practice this?
One powerful exercise is what we could call the fair-minded standpoint shift.
Sounds interesting. How does that work?
Okay, take a prevailing belief in your industry, or maybe a strong personal opinion you hold. First, articulate that belief really clearly. Then, and this is the key, try to construct the strongest, most rational, most empathetic argument for the opposing viewpoint. Really try to inhabit that perspective. That's intellectual empathy. Then, identify the underlying assumptions behind both your original view and the opposing view. Finally, try to synthesize these insights into a revised, more nuanced, fair-minded, and independently formed conclusion.
Wow, that's like intellectual jujitsu on yourself, forcing yourself to argue the other side convincingly.
It stretches your thinking immensely. And the identity shift here, you move from being a follower of trends or a defender of my tribe to becoming an autonomous and fair-minded thinker.
Love it.
Someone who critically evaluates all perspectives, including their own, to build a unique, evidence-based understanding of the world.
You see this in real innovators, right? People like Steve Jobs weren't just following trends, they had an autonomous vision. And modern creators who build real communities often show incredible fair-mindedness in understanding their audience.
Exactly. And for our 2025 solopreneur, this might mean questioning the dominant narrative about, say, using AI for all content creation. They might autonomously decide to focus on human connection first, using AI selectively, while fair-mindedly considering the valid arguments for AI efficiency and the ethical concerns raised by others.
Building a unique path based on critical thought, not just jumping on the bandwagon. Okay, final interactive moment for you listening. Think about one trend or common belief in your field that you've basically just accepted without really questioning it deeply. What is it?
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the big message is this. Your brain isn't broken. It's incredibly powerful. But it might be running some, let's say, outdated software for the complexities of 2025.
And the crucial part is realizing that the responsibility for updating that software for the quality of your thinking really lies with you.
Exactly. It's a shift away from just trying to consume more information, more hacks, more everything.
Which is exhausting and often counterproductive.
Right. Towards becoming a much more skilled processor of the information that actually matters. It's an evolution from being an unreflective reactor, constantly buffeted by the latest thing, to becoming a conscious, critical designer of your own thoughts, and, by extension, your own reality.
Don't let those old mental habits run the show anymore. The invitation here is to take one small, concrete action. Pick just one thing we talked about today. Maybe it's trying the daily brain prime before you start work tomorrow.
Or scheduling 15 minutes this Friday for your first ego audit. Or consciously applying the intellectual standards check to the next article or proposal you read. Just start somewhere.
Because truly, in 2025 and beyond, the clarity, the relevance, the depth, the fairness, the overall quality of your thinking that is going to be the bedrock, the foundation for your success, for the impact you want to make, and honestly, for your own sense of purpose and fulfillment.
So the call to action is rewire on purpose. Start consciously designing the future you want by consciously designing your thinking first.
Couldn't have said it better. And to leave you with something to chew on after we finish, what's one widely accepted truth or assumption, either in your industry or maybe even just in your own life, that you suspect most deserves a really critical reevaluation? Using some of the tools we've discussed today, something to think about.